everybody on the streets. I try to clean the streets up every day I'm out there.
If you live with someone else, you're homeless. And your name is not on the lease, you're homeless.
The crack cocaine, when it came on the scene in the late 80s, played a major part.
I can tell you the story right now that wasn't too long ago where a homeless man was beaten just because he was homeless to death. A lot of people think that people are poor because they choose to be.
There's a liquor store in every corner that you see.
I am Irma Jacobson, PhD. For social workers in particular, and I say social workers because we're one of the few professions who look at the whole picture. Mm-hmm. We don't just say, oh, you're homeless. We'll give you some food and to eat for a day. We look at how to prevent this from happening. So we address the root of the problem by looking at what happened that you ended up in this situation. So most folk who work with the homeless, they feed them, they clothe them, they make them comfortable on a temporary basis. Mm-hmm. Social workers and some of the other professions look at the big picture. And not only do we clothe them, feed them, we look at the economical piece, the financial piece, the problem piece.
I'm the case manager here, and a part of what I do is I assist the homeless with their problems. Many of them, they don't have IDs. Many of them, they are SSI patients. I help them to fill out the forms in order to receive their SSI. I do assessments to just sort of see where they are. We've created a job readiness program where we send them to literacy programs. We send them to their CNA program, GED programs, just various life skill programs to help them, to bring them to a point where they are ready to become a vital part of society. From a young adolescent, I was introduced to children that were homeless because of various problems within their homes. As you know, Greenbriers Children's Center is a facility that houses children who come from problem families and so forth. And so it was at that time that I was like, wow, I can't believe it. The number of children that face homelessness, broken homes, drug abuse, various problems that they face within the home. And then, of course, education. We learned that from the 1916, that homelessness was there way back during Jane Addams and the Hull House and all of that. So what we find is that homelessness has been a problem pretty much probably from the beginning of time. Here in Savannah, it is a major problem. We have approximately over 50,000 individuals, believe it or not, that face homelessness every day. And it's not just those that you would think that live in the woods, or those that are just on drugs, or those that are mentally ill, but we actually have individuals that lost their jobs, as a result lost their homes, and just had nowhere to go and have nowhere to go, because you would just be surprised at who is homeless. Those that are among the working society, many of those that are part of the armed force, those are in the Army, they're homeless. And so it is a major problem.
Sometimes economic circumstances, right now we're dealing with people losing their jobs. That's a perfect example of how no matter what you do, most of us are one paycheck away anyway from being homeless. So, but realistically, ideally, we're supposed to save six months worth of monies, and well, most of us don't do that. And so when you lose your job, even though there could have been some preventive measures there, doesn't always work like that. Ideally, we would want it to. Realistically, we don't. So that's just one example of how it probably could be prevented if our choices were better, but sometimes our choices are not. Another example, a lot of the homeless with whom I've worked had substance abuse problems and or mental health problems. If you don't know that that's an issue for you, guess what? You're not going to get any help. You're not going to seek any help until you find yourself in a crisis.
Okay, my name is Herb Smith. Work for the Homeless Authority as a community service specialist, advocate for all specialty courts in Savannah. But what we do, we have 5 peer specialists that go out into the community to try to get people in, that's called the at-risk population. When they see a person struggling, we try to get them in and get them involved in different programs. If they're suffering from mental health or substance abuse, we get them into treatment. Treatment is a major part of being homeless. In and out of homelessness, I've experienced positives and negatives. I've experienced a lot of people that want to live but don't know how to live, so they become in the homeless magnitude. There's circumstances that come up in people's lives that they can't handle. You know, situations come up there, maybe they lost a job. You have people that deal with drugs and alcohol every day. You got broken relationships, husband and wife break up. You have family situations where you might have unruly kids that can break up a family.
If you start out on unequal playing ground, guess what happens? It's hard to catch up. And that's why I bring the isms in, because if you are treated differently or misjudged, or guess what? You may not have access to the resources that other people may have access to. So poverty is a big piece. Not being on equal playing field, not having access to the same resources, and it can spiral. So it's a combination of.
I think incarceration has a lot to do with the black males being homeless. And being down on black males a lot, like I said, when a situation comes up, when they lose a job, it's hard for them to pick themselves up.
People think that those who are homeless or hobos started from the bottom, just started from the bottom. Over 90% productive citizens who had it going on, who were more than likely successful in their careers and their lifestyles, and something happened. So not all start at the, very few start at the bottom. Most are successful people.
These are real people. You know what I'm saying? These are real people. They are real everyday people. We have individuals in here that have college degrees, believe it or not. And life, so is life, and it happens. And the thing about it is, don't ever count anyone out, and don't ever think that you're above it, because it can happen to anyone at any time.
It happened to anybody. You can be up today and down today.
When life gets you to that point, as you say, that you give up, then your mind does become ill. It's just like the body. If you don't feed it, if it's not receiving the proper nutrients that it needs, it's going to break down on you. And the mind does the same thing after a while. Yeah. So, like I said, there are those that are mentally ill that reside here. They come from Georgia Regional, you see. But then there are those that are here that after a while have become ill mentally because they just feel that there is no hope.
I have to say, there are some people who don't want to be helped. There are some people who they prefer, and if you were to partner or connect with the Homeless Authority here in Savannah, Hutsville in Atlanta, I remember having to go and do outreach for the homeless. When I worked with the homeless in Atlanta, they have their own village out there with bootleg electricity.
It's been existing for years, from the north to the south. I've seen it because I'm from New York. And I've been around homelessness. Years ago they used to just call guys bums that were pushing carts. Now they call them homeless people. So yeah, it's been around years. I don't think it'll be forever, but it looks like it's going to be around for a while.
There is alcohol, as long as there is drugs in the world, as long as there is some form of mental illness, that the problem will exist. As long as the economy continues to vacillate up and down, we're going to face homelessness.
I'm just thinking back to, even in 92, it was the 10-year plan to end homelessness. Guess what? We're still there. Oh my goodness, 20 years later, we're still there. We tend to address the symptoms and not the root. And we know what happens when you don't address the root. You cut a tree down, or you cut a limb down, a bush down, and guess what happens if you don't address that root? It's going to sprout right back up. That's what I see with homelessness. It has to do with all of those factors that I mentioned earlier. Poverty, the isms, people being judgmental, people being under the impression that it's the person's own fault. Not realizing that all of those factors come together. And until we get it in our heads that we have to address the root and not the symptoms, we'll still be dealing with the same old thing. My favorite statement is, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, and guess what? You're working with something. And what we're doing is we're giving them a fish. Every time they come to the soup kitchen and we don't sit down and find out exactly what the real issue is, every time they come for clothing and we don't sit down and have a program together where we find out what the real issue is, we're losing.
I've had several success stories where I had a young woman, 21 years old. She had a 4-month-old baby. Her mom's on drugs, doesn't know where her dad is, and she was living with a boyfriend. He put her out in the middle of the night. She called me, and we have a room set, because we have a women and a men's shelter. And we have a room set in the back for an emergency situation for a family. And I brought her in to that particular room, she and her baby. And I worked with her at first. I gave her a month or so to just, kind of gather herself. And then we got her ready. We got her some clothes, and I sent her to life skill classes, to computer training classes. And then I found her a job at one of our local Popeyes. Let her, started working. We set up babysitting and all that stuff for her. And then I was able to get her into such a wonderful program at the Austin House, where they provide shelter in terms of apartments. They're sending her through what they call the advanced 5-week GED program. After that, she wants to go into a CNA program or a dental assistance program, and she's gone. And so she was here approximately December, January, February. This is March, 5 months, and she's on her way.